All right, welcome everybody. My name is Matt Kixmoeller. I head up product management and marketing here for Pure Storage, and I was employee number 6, so pretty much been here since we started in a room actually about this size on the second floor of this building. So thanks everyone for coming. It's actually kind of a nice homecoming. We launched Pure Storage about 2.5 years ago through a series of these events and kind of introduced us to the technical community, and it was a great series of events to kind of get our technical story out there. We're a bunch of technologists at heart, and we like talking about our technology, and some companies out there tend to be very closed and try to keep that very off the path, if you will, but we took a strategy of being very open to try to get technologists excited about what we were doing, and so it really served us well. So when we started Pure, we started for kind of a pretty simple reason. Sometimes you don't have to make things too complicated, and so when you go and look at the transformation that Flash brings, you just have to look at it, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so this technology is absolutely underpinning this massive transformation in storage. And so when we started, we basically had 2 ideas in our mind. Number 1, we had a hunch that if we wanted to go create an array from scratch and not have any history of disk in our background, we could build something that was truly unique. And that was kind of revolutionary at the time. You know, if you looked at that time, the EMCs and NetApps of the world were very much pushing tiering. And so we basically said, look, let's start with a blank whiteboard and build something 100% for Flash. We actually had a religious rule in the office for I think about the first 2 years where we wouldn't even bring a spinning disk in the office. And then finally we decided we should probably be backing up our build server. And so there you go. We had to get a few. But anyway, the second piece of it was really focusing on economics. And if you look at the early days of Flash, most of the early entrants in our minds were way too performance focused. And we basically said, look, we want to build a storage array that's actually affordable for traditional tier 1 and even tier 2 workloads to deliver the all-flash enterprise, and so people can move holistically off disk. And so we'll get into how we do that today, but that was the mindset. And so as we went along our path over the last many years, whenever we came to a fork in the road and said, you know, this side is faster and this side helps us drive down the cost of Flash, we always went down that side. And we found that to be quite transformational in what we've been able to deliver. So Flash is one of those kind of funny technologies that we often experience as consumers more aggressively than in our enterprise lives. You know, if you think about our consumer life between our cell phones, media consumption, you name it, digital photography, Flash is an inherent part of our lives, and we probably wouldn't give it up if we ever had the requirement to do so. But when you go to work, you see the opposite opportunity. You often see all of our systems at work basically slowed by disk, and most enterprises have deployed well less than 5% Flash in their entire storage profile, probably less than 1% in most cases. And so Pure's mission ultimately is to make that transition happen and help deliver an all-flash enterprise. What do we mean by all-flash? Does that mean we have to go around and kind of hunt down and eradicate every spinning disk? No, of course not. Our most aggressive customers have done that, and we literally have tens of customers now who run all-flash data centers. But for most customers, what that means is being smart about looking at your business and saying, look, where are my business systems? Where are the ones that make a difference for my business, and how can I get a competitive advantage? And so if you look at that competitive advantage, it basically means 4 things. It's making your business faster and making all those systems between you and revenue faster. It's delivering a better end user experience. As the world goes increasingly mobile, that end user device is tethered to centralized services, and that back and forth latency really matters. It's making better decisions using data as part of our business process to analyze more data. This is one of the more fun areas where for customers that have long batch jobs and long analysis jobs, I think our world record at this point within Pure is taking something that was roughly 45 days down to under 5 minutes. But you see those stories of transformation all the time. And then finally, it's efficiency. And when we can go and actually say, look, I can deliver Flash storage for less than the cost of disk, we don't have to have an exotic conversation with the CIO about how you can really afford Flash if you do this really complex ROI model. We can say, no, this is actually cheaper than the cost of disk. And by the way, I'm going to save you money in space, power, cooling, et cetera. And that's only the data center. The other side is the efficiency of your human capital and trying to make the people at work more efficient. So let's still get some examples of those business values. We talked about a faster business. Paylocity is a good example. Customer of ours in the Midwest, leading upstart, outsourced benefits and payroll company. They basically started with a small area of their environment, really trying to turbocharge their transaction processing, and very quickly realized that they should just become an all-flash data center and move towards moving their entire business to Flash. Saw dramatic improvements in pretty much every dimension that matters around space, power, cooling, and just the speed with which they're able to execute their business. Example in the virtualization space, this is a large university that also runs a hospital. And they installed us in an area that's their core compute cluster. They had two goals. On the side, they wanted to make their computer science students happier, wanting to come to their college, wanting to use the best in technology. And on their hospital side, they wanted to make their doctors more productive. This is actually the screenshot within vCenter when they switched over from their disk infrastructure to flash, and you can see the flatline performance. In our world, flatline's good. And so the transformation there was not only a better experience for everyone, but they actually got around 5x improvement in density in terms of their storage franchise and VMs per server. Large insurance company, this is the transformation when they moved from a very large tier 1 array to Pure Storage. This was actually their testing. You can see 20-ish milliseconds going down to under a millisecond. Actually here they were testing not only that, but controller failures and drive pulls and all kinds of things. But for them, this was transactional improvement, 15x, making that business go faster. This is an interesting story in virtualization as well, because for them it was a last mile virtualization problem. What we see with a lot of our customers is they get 60–70% virtualized, and that last mile is all the tier 1 database apps. And so often we'll go into customers and have projects to help them get that last tier of databases under the virtualization umbrella, where I/O is obviously king, and the I/O blunder effect prevents that from happening generally without flash. Some of our deployments are small. City of Davenport, Iowa, awesome deployment. This is an example of where they had deployed VDI. It was actually mission critical VDI that literally ran in their police cruisers and their fire trucks. Moved over to Pure Storage, solved their performance problem, but very quickly realized they could run their entire city on Pure. And that was a huge ROI benefit, because they didn't have to dedicate an entire array to just VDI. And that's one of the key things for smaller VDI deployments that actually drives up the cost. So you can easily share workloads, and many of our several hundred seat VDI deployments are in this zone. And then some of our deployments are not so small. And so these are examples of people that have literally taken 8, 9, 10 frames of spinning disk and turned it into flash, getting that 5 to 10x consolidation, power savings, performance. So, and I'm going pretty fast here because we want to get through the basics on who Pure is so we can go into the technology. But if you look at what stopped Pure or flash adoption in the data center, and we said earlier, globally, much less than 5% flash in data centers, there's really three things we've seen: economics, scale, and complexity. So on the economic side, that one's easy. Flash has been too expensive. And so the choice people have had to make is buying disk at $3 to $5 a usable gig from your favorite tier 1 vendor, or flash that's often 2, 3, 4 times that cost. And so it was just a no-go for most workloads. The second is scale. If you look at a lot of the early flash deployments, a lot of them were either with PCIe cards or they were with flash appliances that were fundamentally designed for single apps. And so that might be nice for accelerating that one database, but for underpinning an entire virtualized infrastructure, hundreds or thousands of VMs, they just weren't big enough. And then the third was complexity. Put simply, storage was already complex, and these flash devices didn't really look like even storage arrays. They were little hunks of flash that required product management or even changes to the whole layout to move to server-based flash. And so ultimately, this was Pure's vision. Deliver something that's affordable, deliver something that scales to hundreds of terabytes to be able to support an entire data center, and solve complexity. Make it feel and look like a real storage array, but let's make it actually better than a storage array, because let's face it, storage arrays are pretty darn complex in traditional tier 1 storage. And so we've had a religious philosophy here and focus around simplicity of driving down the simplicity or up the simplicity management. So what have we built? You see the Lego version. Here's the actual version. Our product's called the Pure Storage Flash Array. Consistent performance. This is all about getting disk out of the way. Many folks will profess that a little bit of flash and a lot of disk is good. If you don't particularly care about performance, that's probably true. It will be less expensive. But for applications where performance matters, which frankly is most of them, getting that tiering out of the way so you'll always know that you can get flash performance is key. Second thing is cost. We drive our cost down in two ways. We use inline data reduction technologies, compression and deduplication, as well as consumer-grade flash. And the two of them together allow us to drive the cost of flash well under the cost of tier 1 disk. When we first launched in 2012, our kind of goal was $5 a gig, and we were able to get down under that $5 range. Today, we're commonly selling in the $3 to $4 range per usable gigabyte. And at those prices, it's dramatically less than what people pay for tier 1 disk, let alone all the software and cost on top of that. Resiliency. So this is probably our biggest differentiator compared to our competition right now. Whenever we go head-to-head in a POC with customers, we'll just say, look, don't believe anybody's data sheets, because there's a lot of exaggeration in marketing and data sheets. Just try these things out. Pull every wire, pull drives, see how performance goes through failure. We showed you that example earlier of that large analytics insurance environment where you saw what happened when you pulled out a whole controller out of a flash array or drives. Consistent performance throughout. And it's been one of our key differentiators. This last year, we also achieved across our entire installed base 5 nines of availability. We track and measure that through our call home logs, very aggressively with our management team. And so, very excited to see that. And then finally, scale and compatibility. Going from small solutions to big, we are actually expanding and developing on both sides. We have demand for smaller and smaller systems because there's remote office and SMB type use cases where people need these devices. And of course, we continue to push higher and higher into the multi-hundred terabyte type deployments. So what does it all add up to? Part of why we were excited about starting this company is because we saw a rare 10x. If you look at kind of the street, it's littered with storage companies who are 10 or 15% better than the incumbents. And you just can't get over the hill that way, right? It's too easy for the existing guys to discount a little bit of that away. And so when we saw this opportunity, we saw, look, there's an opportunity to literally be an order of magnitude better than traditional storage platforms in pretty much every dimension that matters. And what's been surprising to me is the one that kind of sells the first array for our customers tends to be either the faster or the less power, the performance or the economic argument. But the thing that sells arrays 2 through 10 through N is simplicity. And people are really blown away about how they can literally repurpose entire storage teams of people and often make them into virtualization admins because they don't have to sit and mine traditional legacy storage anymore. All right, 3 key use cases: server virtualization, database, VDI. As I said earlier, these mix a lot on our platform. And so we'll often get customers in that start with either VDI or a single database that gives them pain. And our goal is simple: to be their tier 1 storage provider. One of the things you'll notice at the bottom is data reduction rates vary per application. And the technology that really delivers that data reduction varies. Some of them are more compression-centric, some of them are more dedupe-centric. One of our key advantages is that we do both compared to many of our competitors without performance impact. And so we really can be a consolidation array that's great for a large virtualization environment where you're just mixing and matching lots of different applications. All right, so that was a quick brief on the technology, and we'll go much deeper on that as we go along today. I wanted to spend 5 minutes and just also give you a quick insight into Pure, the company. And we take this mantra here seriously of just really trying to build a better storage company. When we went out and talked to customers, we certainly saw frustration around tier 1 storage devices, but we also saw a lot of frustration around tier 1 storage companies and how they were treating customers. And so we've really tried to think intelligently about how we can improve upon that experience. So Pure at this point, I think into our 4th year as a company, 2nd year shipping production, entering our 3rd. Up over 450 people now. About half of them work in this office and half of them are distributed. With the right execution, we'll see that double again this year easily. We've raised $245 million from investors over our 4-year time period here. And we've really chosen investors that had a long-term focus in our business and who were aligned with us around trying to build the next independent storage company. So from day one, our vision was not to build something that was going to get acquired, not to build something where we're going to go OEM to others, but really to build a standalone independent storage company. And having not only, obviously the money to do that, but really the backers who can support you and haul in there for that 15-year experience with you is critical. And then, this is actually half off at this point. We're up over 100 patents filed, but we develop every ounce of software here ourselves. Many of our competitors will go OEM kind of disk era software and try to add it to their flash devices to get to market faster. We had a fundamental belief that all that had to be rewritten for flash. I think I gave you some examples of adoption, but we now have great brand names in both what I would call kind of the high end, the top 5 vendor in X space, but also quite a lot of strength in the mid-market. And so large web companies you use every day, large social networks, pharma companies, military, finance, you name it, a lot of your traditional big storage consumers, but also people like the city of Davenport, people you wouldn't expect to be flash leaders running an all-flash enterprise. And one of the things that's really pleased me is that strength of our mid-market business. And just like in markets I've been a part of in the past, it's kind of anti-intuitive, but what we actually see is that that type of customer tends to go all flash first. Because if you look at a mid-market customer, they don't have 20, 30, 100 storage arrays. They don't have a 5-person storage team. They usually have one person managing all of virtualization and storage in 1 or 2 arrays. And the simplicity argument for the benefit to that person's life by going all flash is very direct and understandable. And so we've seen a large number of kind of people in that part of the world make that transition very quickly. In my previous life, I was a part of the disk-based backup world, and I saw that exact same thing play out with the tape-to-disk transition. It takes forever for the big guys to turn over, but mid-market customers who get the value prop can make it happen very fast. We very much expanded globally over the last 2 years, so we now have direct presence, I believe, in 8 or 9 countries globally, UK, Benelux, Germany, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong now, and in another, let's call it dozen countries through service VARs and resellers in those places. And so a lot of expansion there, and just belief that the types of customers we sell to fundamentally want a global relationship with Pure Storage, and so being a global storage company was important. We also offer a support center that's 24/7 in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's our one kind of dev location that's not here in the Bay Area. But we found to staff that up appropriately, and we've really over-invested in support. It's an area where we've tried to deliver a better customer experience than our competitors and the big guys. We just needed a dedicated group of people who love to do support during the day, or ski during the day and do support at night. And so that was an ideal location from that perspective. Also a lot of language talent in that part of the world. All right, and so I believe this is the last slide, maybe one more. But back to building a better storage company. A couple things we've done to try to really change the dialogue in the industry. The first is we offer an end-to-end guarantee that's unconditional. And so we looked, when we first launched, people said, great, you do dedupe, can you guarantee your dedupe rate? And we said, well, why don't we guarantee the whole thing? Because in addition to a dedupe rate that we promise, you have to believe in our resiliency, you have to believe in our support, et cetera. So we offer an unconditional guarantee. You don't like the array for any reason, return it to us within the first 30 days of ownership, full money back refund. Second is all-inclusive software. You know, this is an area that really frustrates companies, being nickeled and dimed. All of our software is totally included with the product, both what we have today and everything we're going to be developing in the future. One of the things that we focus a lot on is believing that if we needed professional services, then that must be a bug in the product. And so we don't require professional services to install our array, to tune it for a week after you get it, to give it its annual checkup. You know, for us, that's all something that just is part of the experience and shouldn't have to happen. And we leverage our partners for things like data migration services and application optimization services. The one thing we do find is that oftentimes when you put 10 times faster storage in, you might find a few issues in your application logic. And so we find customers needing help optimizing their applications after they get the rocket ship of Pure underneath. Cloud Assist is our support technology, and it's a very unique technology. Our arrays call home every 30 seconds. We've done a nice user experience there where we can have an analysis engine that looks for issues outside of the arrays and very proactively alerts customers. We essentially staff our support organization like a NOC and literally call customers before they know there's an issue. Some of our more fanatical customers love to take people through their data centers, you know, pull a drive and pull out their phone and see how long it takes us to call to show their friends. So that kind of annoys us, but it's also something to be a bit proud of, I guess. And then the newest addition here is Forever Flash. And so we announced the program about 2 months ago now, which is a new way to look at maintenance in this industry. And if you look at the traditional array ownership experience in the past, the entire array industry is basically addicted to the drug of the 3-year refresh, where whether you want to or not, they essentially force you to buy a new storage array every 3 years. If your array is getting too slow, great, you buy a new storage array. If your array pretty much works, then they jack up the maintenance fees to make it uneconomic to keep running your current array so that you will magically go buy a new one. And so what we did was we came up with, first of all, a better model for our hardware, where it's very incrementally upgradable. Our belief is the average flash array will be able to last in a customer environment for 5, 7, 10 years with modest upgrades to it, like refreshes to controllers or additions of flash over time. And we made our array incrementally upgradable without downtime so you can do that. But we married that with a business model that essentially says, look, if you're ever making an upgrade to the array, we will allow you to rebase the maintenance at the then current rate in the market. And so what that means is that if you come 3 years later, add a little bit of flash to your existing array, we'll allow you to buy a brand new service contract for it at whatever the current market rates are then, and not charge you that jacked up out year maintenance. And so for a customer, it means a decreasing cost of maintenance per terabyte over time, where all of our competitors end up delivering an increasing cost over time. And so it's a very game-changing thing in the economic discussion we can have with a customer around the ownership experience around a storage array. All right, this is the last slide. So one of the things that I think was very powerful for customers over the past decade as they went towards virtualization was seeing that virtualization journey, where they started in test dev, they went into production, and they had this vision of getting towards cloud operations in their data center. We see a very parallel journey happening as people move towards the all-flash enterprise, where they will often bring in flash and use it to kind of accelerate a couple key business applications where they're having real pain. But then they start to look at it more strategically. They'll say, great, How can I use it to make my employees more empowered, to improve their experience? How can I use it around analytics to make my data processes in my company better? And then over time, they look at the efficiency and say, great, how can we go across our entire data center and dramatically improve efficiency in the data center? And that's where that link to virtualization happens. The 100% virtualized data center really requires flash. And so we believe that's key to moving towards a more efficient data center. And so we have customers that are literally at all kind of phases of this diagram. Some jump right to the end, others are just getting going, and that's fine. But from our point of view, the important thing is to start. And much like the virtualization journey, when you started, it kind of felt like it was pretty far out before you'd get even half virtualized or 70% virtualized. But for most customers I talked to, it happened way faster than they expected. And we see a very similar thing with flash. Once people buy their first flash array, they just grow. Yeah, so I gave you a brief overview of Forever Flash. One dimension is the rebasing of maintenance. The other dimension is that for folks that are kind of re-upping their out-year maintenance, we allow them to upgrade their controllers for free every 3 years. And what that allows is for you to always have the best performance. If you think about your laptop, when you upgrade Windows versions over many years, the laptop doesn't get smaller, but Windows gets bigger, and so the experience gets slower as a result. Our software is the same way. 5 years from now, we're going to be shipping a Purity operating environment with a lot more features, and if you're running it on a 5-year-old set of controllers, it'll probably feel a bit slower. And so we want to have a method for people to upgrade their controllers every 3 to 4 years to be able to take advantage of the new features in Purity and the new performance that can come with new chipsets. And so that's a great part of the Forever Flash program. All right. So quick agenda today. Vaughn is going to dive into a few of the debates we're having in the industry right now around Flash. Some of the discussions about, let's say, centralized storage versus distributed DAS and storage there, vSAN, et cetera. Neil, who's our chief software architect, is going to be up later and do a chalk talk on the different types of Flash and go a little deeper into how the stuff really works under the covers. And then Joel's going to get into some demos and show our stuff off a bit in the context of a virtualized environment. So let's dive in.